Good afternoon, Rotarians. We've had a tough week here in Little Rock, throughout the state, and frankly, all across the country. To kick off today's meeting, I'd like for J.D. Lowry to lead us in the four-way test, prayer, and pledge. But before we do that, I hope you'll join me in remembering those 5 individuals and their families who lost their lives in North Little Rock and Wynn, and for the historic damage wrought by the tornadoes in Little Rock, in a moment of silence. JD.
Good morning. Please join me in the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, we come to you at a solemn moment. We pray for our friends, families, and neighbors who have been impacted by last Friday's tornado here in Little Rock and in Wynn and elsewhere in the state. In the wake of this tragedy, we are reminded of the powerful force of nature. Not just the incredible force of last week's winds. No, we are reminded of your force of goodness that is carried through the incredible acts of kindness of families, friends, strangers, and organizations within this community. We are thankful for the countless individuals who are ensuring that the impacted have food, water, clothes, and safe places to sleep. Simple acts of kindness from neighbors make us thankful for what truly matters, people and community. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, JD. Thanks also to our greeters, Pam Hathaway, Jim Jackson, Jessica Burrow, Aaron Finzer, Hope McConnell. Thanks also to Kelly Bass for serving and stepping in today as our Sergeant at Arms. Next, I'd like for Ross Alyoung to introduce our guests and Molly McNulty to introduce our newest member to Club 99.
Thank you, President Peacock. I'm going to welcome our guests. As I call your name, will you please stand and remain standing till the end, and we're going to applause all guests at the end. We have a visiting Rotarian, Roger Pratt from the Tri-Valley, California Club. Aaron Sadler is a guest of Chris Bond. Brian Burton is a guest of Sarah Riffle. Leslie Nally is a guest of Patricia Blick. Ross Duvall, guest of Denver Peacock. Mimi Duvall, guest of Denver Peacock. April Jackson, guest of Mayor Frank Scott. Christina Cole, guest of Don Cole. Corey Williams, guest of Mayor Frank Scott. Stephanie Carruthers, guest of Director Cappy Peck. Tony Peck, guest of Director Cappy Peck. And Marion Kahn, guest of Vic Fleming. I also saw some other guests maybe come in, so if you don't mind standing, if I did not call your name, let's give you all a round of applause.
Good afternoon. My prayers remain with those affected by the tornado and its devastation. I'm so thankful to have this wonderful panel on board today, informing us of ways to help. As the Mr. Rogers quote goes, look for the helpers. Club 99 membership is full of them, and I'm delighted today to introduce our newest one, Brad Burleson. Brad works for Cotton Titan, producing digital content and video services. Cotton Titan recently partnered with our club, creating the video honoring Scott Ford as the 2023 Business and Professional Leader of the Year. Brad comes to us from the Hot Springs National Park Rotary Club, where he served as the fellowship chair. Prior to moving to Hot Springs in 2014, Brad lived in the Hillcrest area of Little Rock and served on the board of Our House and Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church. Brad has 20 years of volunteer work for nonprofits through fundraising, chairing events, mentoring youth, and serving on various boards throughout the community. Brad currently serves as the Director of Leadership for Hot Springs Youth Advisory Council, teaching high school youth about area nonprofits, fundraising, philanthropy, and grant making. He serves on the board of the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival and produces the nightly events during the 9-day festival. He also serves on the boards of the Hot Springs Area Community Foundation, the Fordyce High School Alumni Foundation, and the Hot Springs Pride Alliance. Brad has also written and directed 2 short films, both of which are being shown in the film festivals across the country. A mutual friend of Brad and mine texted me this morning, and I quote, "You are so lucky," all caps, "to have Brad Burleson joining your Rotary Club. He will do great things, mark my words," end quote. There is no better endorsement than that. Welcome to Club 99, Brad.
Thank you, Ross and Molly. Congrats, Brad. Welcome back to Little Rock, and welcome to Club 99. Our new member streak continues. 35 consecutive meetings. Let's keep it going, y'all. Next week, please join us for our Club 99 social at Dickey Stevens Park as we join the Travelers in its season opener. Thanks to the Arkansas Food Bank in partnership with the Arkansas Travelers, you can join us that night and donate water and non-perishable items at the check-in tables. Membership Engagement Chair Kelly Bass and his committee will be helping make sure you feel welcome as you come to the park and pick up your tickets. I believe those will be available as early as 4:30 until around 6:15. Our social starts as early as 6, and the game first pitch is, I believe, at 7 p.m. Keep an eye out for your newsletter or the email you got from Karen, but we do need your RSVP today. So if you're going to join us, either let Karen know or sign up online immediately so we can count you in our numbers for next Tuesday's social. And again, no noon meeting here on Tuesday. For many of us, last Friday's events are still at the forefront of our minds. Depending on where we live, we still hear the constant buzz of chainsaws making room for neighbors to access their homes or cars to pass through. We're experiencing slowed traffic as recovery teams make their way to restore utilities and remove downed trees and debris. Some of us may still be without power, thus leaning on friends and family for a place to charge devices, shower, and lay our heads. With these and so much more playing out in real time, I want to remind you of another point in our city's history that look very similar to the happenings we see today. As most of you know, during my La Petite Rose Tricentennial in my Rotary presidential year, I will be telling unique stories about our region's past 300 years. And this story will serve as this week's Illuminating the Rock story. In 1999, Arkansas experienced the largest tornado outbreak in the state's history. From January 21st through the 22nd alone, there were 56 tornadoes, 8 rated at least F3, and 1 tornado in Clay County received an F4 rating. Over the 24-hour period, the Little Rock Weather Office issued, get this, 48 tornado, 80 severe thunderstorm, and 22 flash flood warnings. Most tornadoes occurred that first evening and included hail the size of baseballs and grapefruits. Longtime weather authority Ned Permy has said it was the most memorable event of his 40-year career as a meteorologist. The area of the capital city that sustained the most sizable damage was the historic Quapaw Quarter. Many of you remember watching as the tornado ripped through the downtown Harvest Foods, leaving wreckage in its wake. It continued through the quarter, destroying more than 70 residential and 4 commercial structures, leaving survivors stranded in the elements. There were also several cultural institutions and historical sites that were hit by the system, including the Governor's Mansion, the Daisy Bates Home, Fire Station 2 in MacArthur Park, the Arkansas Arts Center, and the Arsenal Building, which was under construction at the time and would become the MacArthur Museum of Arkansas Military History. Today, visitors to the Museum of Discovery can relive this historical weather moment by viewing a 7-minute video in the museum's Tornado Alley Theater. The chilling experience features footage from THV-11's broadcast that evening and survivor stories, all played on an OTV situated in what you'd expect to find in a basement of a Quapaw Quarter historic home. On the screen, you can see photos from this epic storm series. Homes with entire sides ripped off the insides on view for all to see. Homeowners standing in disbelief as they look upon their homes in total disarray. Neighborhoods flattened and unrecognizable. I was honored to join then President Bill Clinton as he and a team from the White House and FEMA toured the area, consoling neighbors who had lost everything. I particularly remember seeing Molly McNulty and her mother, Judge McGowan, in addition to many more. It was heartbreaking. And now what you see is this area is being and has been rebuilt. A new grocery store serving the community on the same side as the old one, homes repaired, restored, and livable once again, families making memories, children going to school, and new businesses, including the Root, Loblolly, Boulevard Bread, and many, many more. While this area experienced unthinkable devastation, the support of neighbors, community members, and state agencies allowed them to rebuild and return to a new way of life. And now, unfortunately, you see photos from this past weekend, similar signs of devastation coupled with the same level of hope and resiliency. Neighbors coming together to make a path forward. People bringing water, food, and support to those in need. As in 1999, we will rebuild Little Rock and provide a new future for those affected. But it will take all of us, and Mayor Scott leading the way, along with Governor Sanders and other leaders, many of you here in the room organizing around your community organizations and your nonprofit institutions. Together, we will work together to remain Little Rock strong and Arkansas strong. And that's our Illuminating the Rock story for this week. In light of the mindset we all likely find ourselves in, we felt it was essential to pivot today's programming. Instead of welcoming Ross Duvall of Heartland Forward, we will give the microphone to representatives of organizations who are currently serving those impacted by the violent storms last week. These are just a few of the ones that are making an impact. Brian Marsh at Goodwill and many others in our club are making a significant difference. But we couldn't have everybody on stage. So please bear with us as we work through this today. Many of these frontline leaders will provide us with an update on their recovery efforts and share their hopes for a path forward. And at the end of the program, I will announce some ways Rotary Club 99 and all of you can help us joining in their valiant efforts. We will find a future date for Ross when our members can truly focus on Heartland Forward's important work on behalf of Arkansas and other Heartland communities. We look forward to learning more about the organization's incredible impact around the country, including how Little Rock can learn from its most dynamic Metro study released this past Thursday. Already in town for other engagements, Ross graciously agreed to join us today with his wife, Melissa Mimi Duvall. Will you please help me join and welcome them today? Please do make time to say hello to them after the program, and we will continue to work with Ross and Blake and others with Heartland Forward to find a date that works for Club 99 and works for Ross. So next, I would like for our program chair, Chris Bond, for whom without this program today wouldn't have been possible. We're very thankful to Chris and Karen and others for agreeing to make this program a reality today on such short notice. I hope he will come up and introduce our speakers and moderate today's important conversation. Chris? Thank you.
So it's very rare that you put out asks and get immediate yeses, particularly from 8 people at once. So I want to acknowledge that and bear with us as we sort of work through the logistics of how this is going to work. But we're very fortunate, particularly to have people who are on the front line working through the disaster right now. And I think it speaks to 2 things. One, I think the fact that they're here to speak with us today speaks to the need that exists in the community. And 2, our club's history of service and helping the community. And so I think that's why we got so many immediate yeses. We have with us today Mayor Frank Scott. We have City Directors Cappy Peck and Antoine Phillips. We have meteorologist Scott Covert from THV 11. We have Andrew Metters, who's a 30-year veteran in the insurance industry, to shed some light on what this means for business and community from an insurance standpoint. And then we have the folks who are on the front lines during this disaster. We have the Executive Director of the Red Cross, Lori Arnold Ellis. We have Salvation Army Area Commander, Major Bill Maccabee, and we have the Arkansas Food Bank CEO, Brian Burton, with us today. So let's give every one of them a round of applause for being here. First, I'm going to turn the podium over to Mayor Frank Scott. He's going to address us for a few minutes, and then he will join us on stage with Directors Peck and Phillips, and we'll have a Q&A about city response before we kick it over to Scott and then Andrew. Mayor.
I won't be terribly long since we have myself and all the city directors, and we'll kind of make room for Q&A. First and foremost, it is truly an honor and a pleasure to serve the residents of Little Rock. And I can tell you, just thinking back over the past few days, what we've been able to see is our city's resilience, our city stepping up to the challenge to be responsible for one another, provide resources to each other, but most importantly, understand what it truly means to love thy neighbor. It is by the grace of God that we did not experience any fatalities, and that should not be lost. Because if this high-end EF3 tornado would have hit at 5 or 5:30, it's already unbelievable. It'll be even more unbelievable. And so we couldn't be more proud of the men and women of the Little Rock Police Department, Fire Department, all of the first responders, each and every nonprofit city employee that all have come together, focused in great unity. And I think from a public service standpoint, it shows that we should always and always will put people first. And there's been such great seamless communication between Governor Sanders, myself, President Biden, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, and every local leader stepping up for the challenge. It's unbelievable, too, that this has happened, but I want to make certain everyone understands. It happened Friday. We're going to work our butts off to ensure that we fully recover, and we're going to have the type of mindset that things will go back to normal but be even better than before. And that is the type of mindset that we're setting the tone for the state's capital city. And again, just want to share our appreciation. I want to ask City Director Peck and City Director Antoine Phillips, please come join me, and let's give them a round of applause.
Mayor, thank you for setting the table for the conversation. City Director Peck, I'm going to start with you because you wear a few hats on the stage today, both as someone who's helping with the city response, but also as someone who was impacted by the storm. And I wonder if you could just kind of share your experiences with us, both as someone who's been impacted, but also how you've seen the mayor and the city respond to the devastation.
Certainly, and thank you so much, Chris, for inviting me to be here. Yes, I am wearing a few hats. We were very lucky at Trios. We were hit. We had about 25 or 30 people in the restaurant. Our phones started going off, flipped on the TV, and we heard Little Rock take cover. Thank goodness all of those things were set in place because we crammed about 25 or 30 people into our walk-in coolers and survived, and then walked out and saw the devastation. We were super lucky. They allowed us back into the building. We got all of the food out of our walk-ins and freezers and coolers. We called potluck. They came with vans and trucks and took all of our product to take to the various food banks. So that made us feel good. But then the next day, they said we couldn't get back into the building because the building's been compromised. So who knows how long we'll be out of business, but I'm afraid it's going to be for quite some time. My other hat, I cannot express, and I'm going to really try not to get emotional, how proud I am of the city of Little Rock. From the top to Mayor Scott down, to all of the directors of the departments, to the police, the fire, public works, these people working 12-hour shifts for several days in a row to reach out to people that needed it, to the religious organizations, community organizations, everybody's out in full force doing everything they can to help the hardest hit. There was a 6-mile swath. My ward, Ward 4, took the brunt of it. I've been in the Walnut Valley neighborhoods, Colony West, Sturbridge, Old Forge. Y'all, it's devastating. These people have nothing. But we are resilient. We are strong. We're going to build back stronger than ever. I appreciate everybody for personally reaching out to me. I might be looking for a kitchen to cook out of because I think I'm going to be displaced for a while. But I do want to say one thing. The city center is where people should go at Emmanuel Baptist Church, but there's another location that's easier to get to, the historic Pankey Community Center. That community has come together and opened up their community center with supplies, and so I'm really trying to get the word out to funnel people to Pankey. There's no traffic out there. People can recharge their devices, get cleaning supplies, water, etc. I'll say one more thing. I said I'd try to be brief. Food.
It's okay.
I'm trying. Food. Y'all, we don't need any more food right now. There are people traveling those neighborhoods, feeding first responders and frontline workers. We're having to actually throw food away. My food blogger friend, the Mighty Rib, he is inundated with food trucks and restaurants that want to give 50 meals, 3,000 meals, and we're literally having to throw some of that away. So food is not the answer right now. Get out there, help people gather their belongings, get them some tarps. The rain is coming. We need to prepare. But again, I love Little Rock. I loved it before, but my heart is so full with everybody's generosity and response. So thank you.
Director Phillips, we'll follow up with you. As City Director Peck just noted, food is not the real immediate need right now. I wonder if you could speak first to some of the things you saw on the ground Friday, and then also some areas where the city is helping and how we can pour into some of that need.
Absolutely. We'll definitely reiterate what the mayor and Director Peck said. People at Little Rock have been great. So thank you, thank your families, thank your friends, and definitely thanks to our first responders and city staff who's organized this effort. Friday, I'll just be brief and then get to the kind of recovery efforts. I will say that I had the privilege to actually be in the command center Friday night as everything was happening and unfolding. In the midst of chaos, there was calmness and cooperation in the room, led by our mayor, excuse me, and everyone around the table understood the seriousness of the situation, but there was still a calmness. Like we know what to do. We're going to handle this correctly. And you seen that at every press conference, every press release. There's organization and effort and cooperation all around the board. So that's what struck me Friday. We didn't know the severity really until late Friday, and then when the sun came out Saturday morning. But just to see all the different folks in one room understanding, let's stay calm, let's cooperate, let's take care of the people of Little Rock. So that was amazing for me to see. As it relates to the relief efforts, and I think we should share this, Denver, from the city, make sure the Rotary Club email list, and we'll get all this to you so you can have the information. But anybody knows me knows I'm a big Jay-Z fan. And one of his quotes were about after 9/11 happened, he said, "I put dollars on mine. I was the first in line." And that's a great line, because I like him. It's a great line. But you don't have to be first in line. And that's what I want to share with our people at Little Rock, that there was a lot of work that happened over the weekend. There's still a lot of work to do. And there's going to be a lot of work to do for weeks to come. So just because you wasn't first in line, don't mean you shouldn't be in line to help people. And one way that we can do that, obviously we have the donation center out at 7000 Murray Street. Director Peck mentioned the city center at Emmanuel Baptist Church. Yesterday, and I received these calls, a lot of people said, "Man, I have a pickup truck, I have a flatbed, I want to help remove debris." Well, the city has organized what we can do with that debris. We're taking it to Reservoir Park, so that's another way you can help. But all these things are coordinated through our city volunteer services. So if you go to littlerock.gov/volunteer, you can sign up. And there's different ways that we're organizing the effort to be the most effective and efficient. So if you want to spend time, there's a way to spend time. If you want to donate money, there's a way to donate money. If you want to pick up debris and take it to Reservoir Park, that's there too. So I would say definitely utilize that city resource and fit in where you can. There's going to be work to do today and for the next few weeks. So tell your family, your friends, don't be discouraged. There will be many, many opportunities to help out and get in line.
Mayor, I want to ask you to follow up on something you noted from the podium, the level of support and response from both the state and federal government. I wonder if you could speak into that a little bit more and what you've seen there.
Yeah, I just go kind of harken back to that hour. I'll highlight this. Literally, I was actually in Chenal doing a site visit because Ward 5 wants a new traffic signal. And so I'm on the phone with Karen Fetzer, of all people, kind of talking about the traffic signal. And to be quite honest, I wasn't, at the time I knew a storm was coming, but I'm just focused on the work that we're doing. And literally I was 20 minutes out of the tornado myself. So drive back to City Hall. We all kind of hunker down in City Hall. And the next thing we know what's going on. And so within minutes, I'm now transitioning to the city center, which actually many people don't realize that, and really a big shout out to Emmanuel Baptist Church and the vision back in 2017 to purchase the Kroger's to really make that a community center. And so we made a quick decision in concert with Emmanuel Baptist Church for that to be our staging area for local law enforcement within minutes. Literally within minutes, you had majority of the Little Rock Police Department located there to figure out what to make the next step. And so you take it from that standpoint, within minutes, Governor Sanders and I are on the phone discussing whether or not there's going to be a need for the National Guard. We make the quick call to request the National Guard. Governor Sanders quickly said yes. And then within moments, we're working now towards figuring out whether or not we're going to need to do a declaration of an emergency alongside the county judge, Barry Hyde, Governor Sanders, and myself. That quickly happens. And so what it shows is within minutes, state, federal, and local were all in constant communication, collaboration, and cooperation, because we knew that at that point in time, the priority were the people of Little Rock, the people of Arkansas, and you just couldn't have been prouder of the public servants that had the mentality to communicate, collaborate, and cooperate on the best priority for the people of Little Rock.
As we wrap up here on stage, Mayor, I don't know if you want to leave us with anything in closing on how we can help and what next steps would be for those of us in this room.
I think both City Directors Peck and Phillips both shared the great things that are of need. Let's make sure that we don't become numb to the incident. You know, we're talking about close to 3,000 structures were devastated, impacted, which included many, many hundreds, maybe a couple thousand families within the city of Little Rock. And they all are without homes. And it takes 6 to 9 months to build a home. And that's, you know, and we know the banking market right now too. So, let's just be really honest about things right now. 6 to 9 months to build a home. And what many of us aren't talking about is some homes may have been paid for, close to being paid off, and that delta and that gap of what they're going to be worth and what they may or may not get from insurance is going to be totally different. And so really housing becomes an even more critical policy need that we have to focus on from the City of Little Rock perspective as we move forward. That being said, many know I'm a man of faith. Be prayerful. Faith without works is dead. We got to get to work. Thank you.
Thank you. So up next, we have Scott Covert from THV 11. Scott's going to visit with us a little bit about what happened Friday, how did the tornado come to be, and then also, I know a big question in the room is, what about tonight? And so how should we be thinking about the weather and how it impacts us tonight? So Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So a lot like the folks you just heard from, the folks you're going to hear from, I've not had a lot of sleep in the last 3 or 4 days, so I hope I say something that's coherent. This was a well-forecasted event. I don't say that to pat THV 11 on the back. Every station nailed this. The National Weather Service nailed this. We knew this was coming days in advance, and I think that's one of the few reasons why our fatality number was as low as it was in context of the storm itself. Specifically that day of, supercells developed right around this time, and they were tracking towards the northeast. We had our first tornado warning in southwest Arkansas. You saw where these were going. We were running a protocol model in the Weather Center, and I looked at Chief Meteorologist Tom Brannon, and I said, this is a protocol. We can't believe this, because it had a tornado track, a violent tornado coming right through Little Rock. It's a protocol model. It's not tested. It's not proven, but that day it performed pretty well. We started seeing some of those signs pretty early that, okay, what this model is predicting is also happening right now. So maybe there's something to this. That morning we began communicating with school districts that were just looking for some good information so they could make their own decision. That's certainly something I will always volunteer to do. I won't make your decision for you, but I'll equip you with the information you need. And what comes to mind right now is PCSSD made an incredibly unpopular decision. I know they got flack for it, but at the end of the day, I personally believe those kids were safer in a school building than on the roads in a bus. And I knew that the moment we started hearing from storm chasers saying there are dozens of cars on their tops on Interstate 430. So I applaud the administration there for making that decision. This was a really unique storm. Arkansas, most of our tornadoes are nocturnal. They happen at night. This was anything but. We had so many visuals into this storm, the first of which our radar detected debris in Hot Springs. So at the time, I'm thinking, oh, goodness, this is about to go right over Lake Hamilton High School. We've got an issue. We're seeing debris. I'm really nervous about that. Oaklawn, in the path of this storm. It's Friday. It's a beautiful afternoon, race day. God knows how many people are there at Oaklawn that may have had one too many beverages and are going to ignore that warning. So those are things that are concerning us. We're approaching rush hour. We're even more mindful of school districts dismissing, and we're hearing various different decisions. And at the end of the day, it's a terrible predicament. You can either send the kids home, and they're going to be at home without parents. They're going to be on TikTok and YouTube, and they don't know what a tornado warning is, or what they should do if they get one. But also at the same time, you don't want folks on the road. It's just rather a difficult decision that they had to deal with. This storm passes out of Garland County, crosses the county line of Saline County, still shows a very evident debris ball on radar. We're looking pretty well into the storm using the Little Rock radar beam. Debris up to 6,000 feet. Sounds impressive, generally a weaker tornado. Keep that in mind as we fast forward and walk through this. This storm at this point is very evidently on a dead set track right through Little Rock. National Weather Service makes an incredible decision to go ahead and issue an extended warning beyond what they typically would have. Knowing the path of this storm, there's nothing going to stop it. And right before this storm, somebody at the National Weather Service in Little Rock decided, you know what, let's release a weather balloon. And that was a genius move. And you might think, well, releasing a balloon ahead of a storm, what good's that going to do? Well, we got some data from that. And what it told us is the environment that is right above Little Rock is a powder keg. If a storm moves through Little Rock, there's nothing that's going to stop it. And so using that data, seeing what was coming out of Saline County, they issued the tornado warning polygon. And let me just tell you, the men and the women at the National Weather Service in Little Rock are heroes. They made that decision that day to bypass their standard operating procedure, knowing what was coming, and they issued that warning. The average lead time on a tornado warning is 13 minutes. We gave upwards of 50 minutes notice that day, and I will always believe that 50 minutes saved a lot of lives. We started seeing chaser reports. This is so strange. This is year 2023, and apparently we fly drones into tornadoes now, and we live stream it. So we were able to look at live footage from a drone in Saline County, rapidly rotating wall cloud. You look at the storm base, and you can see it lowering. Tornado genesis is imminent. At that point, we're just looking at the clock. It's rush hour. It's almost rush hour. This is not good. Downtown Little Rock, West Little Rock, God knows how many people are going to be out and about. Are they going to get the warnings? Are they listening to Sirius XM and they're not going to get the warnings on local radio? The pit in our stomach. We hear the reports. It's happening. We've got a live feed on it from our TCBY Simmons Bank Tower camera. Some habits are hard to break. And there it is. And Chris, I know I'm going long. You're my producer. You're supposed to wrap me.
All right.
You see that tornado, and that is the image that has haunted me and kept me from sleeping the last few nights, is you see it and you know where it's at. And if someone's not in shelter, there's not a good outlook for them. And that was really tough to see. The tornado itself crosses the Arkansas River, and now we're in what's called the cone of silence. The radar can't see above itself. So we're flying blind. A colleague of mine had a genius thought of pull up the Fort Smith radar. And that's when I knew this was historic. From the Fort Smith radar, we could see debris 13,000 feet above the ground. It takes a very violent tornado to keep debris that far in the sky for that long. And of course, we've seen reports of street signs in West Little Rock being found in Sherwood. And that's just a testament to how severe that was.
Scott, as you're kind of talking through how horrific it was and the nightmares you're still having, I think a lot of people are nervous about tonight. I wonder if you could kind of briefly walk us through. We know you can't predict the future, but how prepared should we all be, and is there a level of threat, and should we be nervous?
The answer to this question was tough. It was tough Saturday morning. We did extended coverage. We were the first to go on, last to go off Friday night, on almost all day Saturday. Additional news coverage is Sunday. Of course, we wanted to tell the stories of victims, tell the stories of how folks could help, but also we have to be weather prepared because we knew that today was coming. And boy, this morning, walking that fine line of not scaring anyone, but also making sure they had the information to be prepared was incredibly difficult. And as I sit before you with a pit in my stomach, I find it incredibly difficult right now to tell you that, yes, we have a very volatile situation tonight. It will continue into tomorrow morning. There is going to potentially be 2 rounds. The first is somewhat of an all or nothing. There could be 1 or 2 supercells somewhere in the western half of Arkansas. So is this going to impact Little Rock? I don't know. I sure hope not. The higher chance does appear to be just to the west of the metro. I'm talking Hot Springs, Mena, Russellville, Clinton. But as we saw, even with this storm specifically on Friday, it can and sometimes does happen outside of the highest risk area. There will be a secondary round as the cold front approaches tonight. There will be additional supercells move through, and that could linger into mid-morning tomorrow. The timing of Friday was concerning, but thank God it was in daylight. Thank God we had cameras all around it. Thank God we could get people the warnings they needed. But what concerns me the most about tonight is nocturnal tornadoes, studies have shown, are 50% more likely to be deadly because people are asleep. I have a NOAA weather radio. When I leave here, I'm going to go make sure it's good to go. Batteries are checked, programmed, so that it'll wake me up. I hope folks tonight have a way to receive warnings. I don't want anyone to be scared and stay up all night for something that may or may not happen. But that's the pit in my stomach, is the timing of tonight's event.
Yep. Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Next up, and I'm going to give you guys a fair warning. We're probably going to run a little long, and just bear with us, but this is important information. Next up, we're going to have Andrew Metters join us. As I mentioned, Andrew, 30-year veteran in insurance, recently was featured in, I believe it was Arkansas Money and Politics, talking about this very thing, how severe weather can affect insurance. And so just quickly, Andrew, if you could kind of run us through the extent of the damage and where we go from here.
Thank you so much, Chris. First, I wanted to say I was on the radio yesterday, 103.7 The Buzz, and I was misunderstood because I went into the whole insurance aspect of this and risk management and premiums going up. The human misery factor of this is by far what's most important, but that's not my job today to talk about that. I could talk about that until tonight. So my job is to talk about insurance and risk management. I grew up in the insurance business under my father, Alan Metters, and I got in the business in 1987. As far as I'm concerned, this was the big one. Friday was the big one. 600 yards wide, that is 6 football fields. 31.9 miles long on the ground from 2:20 p.m. to 2:58 p.m. I was up late last night watching THV after the UConn games. I was cheering for UConn too, so I'm hoarse. I've lost my voice. It's been a crazy last several days. This, as Mayor Scott said, this was an EF3. I call it EF3 plus. 1 mile an hour from an EF4. I call this an EF4. Little Rock history, 1950, 1967, 1975, 1980, 1982, 1997, the series in 1999, and 2001. And this to me is the big one. This will be, in my opinion, by far the biggest property damage day in the state of Arkansas's history. By far. Because it came through right the center of the capital city. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before many times. We'll see if that's proven right or not. Sunday afternoon, I was out seeing a major client, major property damage. Shout out to Mayor Scott and his team was out making the rounds Sunday afternoon, seeing people who were affected. He cares. So I have a whole page here. I want to give out my cell phone number in case anyone wants to call me later after this, 501-690-1818, in case other questions come up here. But I'm going to jump around just for the highlights here. Insurance carriers around America were backing off property insurance before this series of storms. You know what's going on down there on the coast. When the Surfside Building condo tower collapsed a couple of years ago, it led to inspections of all the buildings down there. So that and the hurricane, wind, hail insurance going up, there are unit owners in Florida and all along the coast that are being assessed $50,000 to $100,000 per unit. A lot of these are retirees on fixed income. My point is, this is very, very serious, and the wind tunnel used to seem to come from, Oklahoma through Fort Smith and disperse around Arkansas and surrounding states. The wind tunnel is getting much, much bigger. It is changing dramatically. In our global history of this planet, over the centuries, our planet has changed violently in weather many, many times. There is an ice age, for God's sakes. So this is not unusual. It may be global warming, may not be global warming. I'm not that smart enough. I'm not a scientist, but something is happening. The domestic insurance marketplace is going to tighten up further. Premiums are going to go up. I'm not asking for anyone to feel sorry for the insurance industry. I was accused of that after my radio appearance yesterday. Don't cry for me, Argentina, okay? I mean, it's a business. They'll be fine. There's a lot of capital in our business, but the underwriters are reactionary people, and premiums are really going to continue to go up. The reinsurance market for the domestic property casualty insurers, there's two semi-annual contract period renewals, 1/1 and 7/1. I expect big increases in reinsurance July 1st, which will in turn affect Chubb, CNA, Hartford, Cincinnati Travelers, all the companies that you are familiar with. So my fear overall is that if it keeps getting worse, that the property insurance marketplace, the adjusted pricing will be more than most Americans can afford. I didn't say all Americans, okay? I said most Americans. And I have great empathy for our neighbors in Mississippi who were hit, in Arkansas, in all these states, and we have to do more to help them. In 2011, Tuscaloosa, Alabama was hit with an EF4, $2.4 billion in damage, Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. We all remember that one. So I see some similarities there. But it's going to be so important for all of us to band together and work together. I've driven the neighborhoods of West Little Rock. I cannot believe what I see. It's very emotional. I've been in the business since 1987, and I don't mean to be dramatic today, but I truly believe that this is the big one. And it's going to be the biggest day, property damage-wise, in our state's history. I could go on and on. I will not. Any other comments or things?
Andrew, I appreciate you sharing that insight, and thanks for being willing to talk through it with us today.
Thank you.
So I've now scared the heck out of everybody. There's another tornado coming. Your insurance rates are going up. It's all going to hell. We're now going to bring up some folks who can speak some hope into the situation. We have Lori Arnold Ellis, the Executive Director for Red Cross Arkansas. We have Bill Maccabee, Area Commander for the Salvation Army, and Brian Burton, the CEO of the Arkansas Food Bank. These three folks in particular have been on the front lines working to bring some hope out of the situation. And so we appreciate you guys being here. We'll applaud you after we wrap up because I know we're tight on time. I'll start this question really for each of the three of you, and we'll just start with Brian to my right, and then we'll work our way down to Bill. I wonder, Brian, if you could speak into briefly the efforts from the food bank and the role that you guys are playing on the ground currently.
Well, I want to clarify Director Peck's comment. She was referring to hot meals when she says no food is needed. I just want to make sure. The bad news is about 10 days ago, the Arkansas Food Bank reached its lowest level of food reserves in our history. We're in a perfect storm of USDA cutting back after the pandemic, a supply chain, competition with the private food industry, and just the inflation. It's just unbelievable how difficult it is right now to source food, and this is happening across the country. So we had about 100,000 pounds of food, which that sounds like a lot, but it's one day. And so we're in a pretty difficult food sourcing, a very difficult food sourcing environment right now. And we're very pleased that the Kroger company and Walmart and others have stepped up during this. And we were there late, past midnight Friday, clearing out the Kroger store on Rodney Parham, rescuing the frozen and all of that. So it's been an incredible experience. We're really not front lines per se. We support the front lines. The food bank shows up with snacks and bottled water for the folks that are doing that frontline work. But I want to emphasize that this event comes in stages. And so the fear that we have is that after the power's back on, volunteer groups pack up and leave, that people will then think, well, we're good. But when you think about our beloved state, we're one of the most impoverished. And so it's going to take much longer for people to recover here. Wynn is devastated. It's going to take so much longer. And so I would just ask all of you, as leaders in this room, this is your moment to shine. We need to lean into our strength and the towering potential of our community and really be in this strong for the long haul to fulfill this vision that the mayor just laid out about building something bigger and grander than before. We can do that. Arkansas Food Bank works every single day, 40 million pounds of food sourced out into the 33 counties. And this Russellville and Hot Springs area that's about to be hit, that's our service area. But we're good at what we do. We know how to do it. We're extremely efficient. We know our place in this, and it's for the long haul. And so just do not be weary in well-doing, because we really need you to stay engaged. And everybody's primed right now, and the deer feeders and volunteer groups show up, and we celebrate that. But please, this is going to take a long time, and we can't get discouraged. We have to be patient and resilient and resolute. That's my message.
Lori, I'll follow up with you as well. What are you seeing, and what are some ways that the Red Cross, all the ways, are helping? But if you could kind of walk us through some of that.
Well, first, I just have to echo everything that Brian has said. This is going to be a long process. We are, first of all, so grateful for the way the community comes out and helps, and everybody wants to bring food, and everybody wants to bring in their clothes, and they want to bring, their time, and they want to go out and help. And we appreciate that. But what we're going to see is next week and the week after that, that's going to drop off significantly. And we're all going to go back to our lives and be like, whew, glad I made it through that. But all the people who lost their homes are not going back to anything like that. Their mindset, they're not going to have that breath of, whew, glad everything's over, because it's not. So I want to remind all of you that if you want to help, either physically by doing something, or if you want to make a donation of some sort, if you do own a restaurant and you want to do food, think about that in the long term. Think about what that looks like in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Housing is going to be a huge, huge issue. So be thinking about those long-term effects, because right now, this is personal. We all feel this. But we are human, and we will move on. But these people who've lost their homes, they're not moving on anytime soon, and never. I mean, really, this is going to be something that impacts them for the rest of their lives. So I just want to say all that first, and then let you know what the Red Cross is doing. So we have kind of 2 phases, 3 actually. The first phase is preparedness, so please, everybody, be prepared tonight. Be paying attention. Know what your plan is. Know where you're going to take shelter if you need to. And please, if you hear a warning, take it seriously. So that's the first thing. And then we go into our response phase. We have a shelter open in Calvary Baptist Church for people who don't have a place to stay. We also support other partners who have their own community shelters. We have one in Jacksonville. We have a shelter in Wynn. So we have sheltering, and again, thank you to all the people who've brought food and things. Thank you to the food bank, who's also been helping us with snacks and waters and things like that. And we also have damage assessment teams. They're going through every single neighborhood, and they are pinning every single house, and they are doing an assessment on each one of those houses. And that is to enable us to be able to support some people long term. So depending on the damage to their house, and if you've seen, the pictures, there's going to be a lot of people who qualify for our level of support. We're going to be able to help them with financial support in the coming weeks. We also have other services like health services, mental health, spiritual care. So we're trying to help people who've lost their medications, who've maybe lost medical equipment. We're able to help them recoup those costs and recoup those items. Mental health, you can only imagine that people need someone to talk to right now, and not everybody has the means to call a therapist, so we have those free sources. And then the long term, we are going to be helping people with casework and figuring out their next steps. We're going to be talking to HUD and other housing organizations to figure out where these people are going to go. The mayor just spoke about the fact that houses take a long time to rebuild, and even people who have insurance, it's not an immediate fix. And for those who don't have insurance, which we're going to see a lot more of that in the North Little Rock, Sherwood, Jacksonville areas, it's going to be even longer for them. And so just keeping all those things in mind, just want to thank everyone for the outpouring of help. Also keep in mind that some of our needs are going to be unusual. For instance, we're looking for a forklift. These are not necessarily things people have in mind because we're thinking immediately, how can I go out and hand out, hot food? But there's a lot of this stuff in the back end, and I know I can speak to all three of us and everybody else here who's in an organization that works in disaster. There's so many things that you don't see that are needs, and so be creative. Think about what your organization does, and maybe you've got some kind of interesting need, charging stations. We could use charging stations for people who can't charge their phones, that kind of thing. So I guess that's what I want to say, but really thank everybody here for being here and for caring about our community. This is really personal. This hit my neighborhood too, and so I'm trying not to get emotional, but it's a hard one.
Yeah, so the Salvation Army, we have currently 9 mobile feeding units throughout central Arkansas, 6 that are right here located with, and then we have 3 that are in Wynn. We've provided over 4,000 hot meals. We lost track of how many snacks we gave out, but we're really pushing that right now. We've got that part of the recovery set from the Salvation Army standpoint. We're starting to look at the mid recovery and long-term recovery. I know everybody wants to help, and you've heard this echoed with all 3 of us. You want to help, you want to volunteer, you want to give. Right now, at least from the Salvation Army, I think they'd agree, but I don't want to speak for them. The best way to give right now is monetarily. That gives us the fluidity to be able to shift in those needs that we don't know about right now as we're moving forward. Plus, having all the donations logistically can become very difficult and expensive to manage. So there's a lot of different ways to give, but monetarily right now is the best way. The Salvation Army is going to continue to feed through at least Monday. We'll continue to assess what we need to do with that before we start moving into the mid and long-term recovery aspects of of getting back to some kind of normalcy.
I think as we wrap, and Denver's going to speak into this a little bit in a moment, but I think help us think through how do we keep our focus on mid and long-term recovery efforts. If we want to help in the future, are there some specific ways to get plugged in at the food bank or the Red Cross, Salvation Army? Is there a list where we could sign up? What does that look like? How do we make sure that this is top of mind going forward?
Yeah, we need the food bank all year long, and arkansasfoodbank.org. Some people want to provide in-kind food. We need pop-top type of food, a small fruit cup, small cans of meat, things that are easy for people. Peanut butter, those pouches of peanut butter, squeezable. It is neat. We need to be thinking about ease of consumption right now and just not a lot of heavy. But Emmanuel Baptist Church, I was there yesterday. They brought a truck to the food bank at 8 o'clock yesterday morning. By 5 o'clock, they were begging me for canned goods. They had 500 families visit there yesterday. It's unbelievable. It's just like third world. And so Stay involved throughout the year. We're here. You built these organizations. You trust us. We try to earn that trust every single day. This is our moment, and this is our community. Let's show the love.
I'll say for long term, we need the Red Cross every day, just like we need the food bank every day, just like we need Salvation Army every day, just like we need Goodwill. And so many of these organizations, we're not just active in disaster, we're active every single day. We need volunteers who are already trained and ready to respond when this happens. And we need volunteers who respond to house fires. House fires happen every single day in Arkansas. We have one of the highest incidences of home fires in the country. And we need people who are already in the system. You know, we talk about this when we're talking about blood too. We need blood on the shelves. We need you to give blood before it's needed. We need volunteers before it's needed. And if that's something that you would consider, you know, being a part of long term, we need that. And then when this kind of thing happens, we can already call you. We're not scrambling around looking for someone who's willing to help. We've got people. And so that's what we need long term. And I will echo what Bill said here too, that financial donations really are the best way to support, because there's so many unmet needs that we can't identify right now. And we're lucky to have great partners who have the ability to take your food that you have or any of the other items that you want to give away. But in the long term, a lot of people everybody has an individual need. And financial donations let us meet those individual needs. People, you know, if they have babies, they have baby needs. If they have, you know, elderly people, they might have medical needs. So the financial donations help us be very specific and very equitable in how we meet those needs.
Bill, I'll let you have the last word before we kick it back to Denver.
I would just say get connected to a nonprofit that you really respect, that you do some research on and know what their background is, and stay connected with them throughout the year, not just during disaster. There's those opportunities for training that we're always providing. So find somebody, stick with them, walk beside them, serve on their boards, and help shape how they're going to continue to move through the future.
I want to mention two things from a city perspective real quick. Matt Burks, the Emergency Management Administrator for the city, is here at the meeting today. So, Matt, thank you for being here. I'm sure he can answer some questions if folks have them after. Also, Little Rock Cares, which the city is administrating, 100% of the proceeds will go to tornado relief. So thank you to the city for those resources as well. Brian, Lori, Bill, thank you for being part of the discussion, especially in the middle of all this. So thank you for your work today and always.
Thank you, Chris, Mayor Scott, Directors Peck and Phillips, Scott, Andrew, Lori, Major Bill, and Brian. Appreciate all you had to share with us today. I do have some books as part of our speaker series that we're doing. It was an initiative around our literacy work. Stick around, we'll present these and do a photo. All of you that spoke today, come on back up and we'll present your books by Little Rock Connected authors that we're sharing with all our area resource centers, our Little Rock School District libraries, elementary schools, and so forth. So many of you have asked, how can you be supportive? Some of you have reached out to Karen directly and said, I want to give, I want to do it through Club 99. How can we do this? How can I help? So in addition to supporting these organizations directly, Goodwill and others, including the City of Little Rock, we will be setting up a Rotary Club of Little Rock Tornado Task Force chaired by President-elect nominee Jason Chaco and past President Jeff Hildebrand. This task force will gather and review opportunities for supporting local organizations making an impact with the recovery right here in Arkansas and in central Arkansas. 100% of the proceeds will go to entities involved with the tornado recovery efforts. Every dollar you give to Club 99 Foundation will go back out to these organizations. We will recognize all donations above $1,000 through a special Sid Brooks Illuminate the Rock recognition. Of course, you can give more than that, much more than that if you'd like, but we'd love to raise several $1,000s for this effort. The task force will also organize service days for the club and guests to participate in cleanup and recovery efforts. So if you'd like to join the task force, you can visit with Chaco immediately after this meeting. I know past President Hank Kelly is going to participate. President-elect Natalie Gaddotti will serve on this committee. If you're hoping to get donations from this group, we hope you will not vote on that. We're not going to allow you to vote, but you can lean in and provide them some need that you may have for them to consider. So we hope you will participate in that effort. Again, please join Jason immediately after, and Hank and Natalie, whoever's still around, if you'd like to participate in this incredibly important effort for Club 99 to make a significant difference and make an impact. They will also give regular updates over the weeks and months ahead, and they will report on how all the work that we've done through Rotary and the impact that these organizations are making through your donations. And then, of course, later in the year, we will have a recognition day where all of you who have given more than $1,000 will be honored here on the stage. So thank you for all you're doing for our community. We have a long, long way to go. But together, we can and we will make an impact. And we will continue our efforts in doing what we always do in illuminating the rock. So thank you. Next week, as was mentioned, we will have our Arkansas Travelers season opener social at Dickey Stevens Park. No noon meeting. Bring your water and non-perishable food items. As Brian mentioned, that's still very, very important. We hope to see you next Tuesday at Dickey Stevens Park. And with that, we are adjourned. All right, y'all stick around. We'll do a quick photo if that's all right. You already got one.